Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the part of the live stream that doesn't make it into the podcast. We're here for episode 137 of Podcast PD. And if you're joining us in the chat, be sure to leave a comment. If you're watching this after the fact, leave a comment. We'll check it. And if you missed the live, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. All right, let's do it.
I'm ready to go. Let's roll.
We got great guests coming up too today.
Awesome.
So,
Two awesome guys. Can't wait to have
this.
a conversation with them.
All right, here we go. Turn that into a 137. There we go. Coming up on episode 137 of Podcast PD, we'll explore the unique challenges that educators face maintaining their mental well-being and achieving a healthy work-life balance. Our guests today are Kevin and Jason, and they bring with them a wealth of experience and educational knowledge about leadership, as well as a deep commitment to helping educators thrive both in and out of the classroom. Let's start the show.
This is Podcast PD, the show that provides you with anytime, anywhere professional development. Our conversations and guests will provide you with the learning you might get in a faculty meeting or on a PD day. Except you're going to have more fun with AJ Bianco and me, Chris Nessie. Let's start the show.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good generic time of the day. It's Podcast PD episode 137. My name is Chris Nessie, at Mr. Nessie on Twitter, and I am joined, as always, by the incomparable Podcast Paisano, AJ Bianco. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, we are back and better than ever, Christopher. Here we go.
Yes, we are.
137. We're finally hitting the corner.
Wait, what?
I don't know. Just trying to think of things to say.
That's what we do each and every time we turn on these microphones.
Just make things up.
How have you been?
I have been, let's see, it's been a month since our last recording.
Yes.
And it's been a quick month, though. Like January felt like forever.
Yeah.
February's been like a blur.
Did you know that in the month of February, I will have worked only one 5-day week? And it's this week coming up as we're recording.
I feel like you're bragging right now, and I don't appreciate that.
I am bragging right now.
Good for you.
I mean, the snow helped.
Well, yeah, that was one day for us.
Well, the one day there was snow, but that turned out to be a rain day for me because of where I live.
Oh, you got rain.
We got rain. School got snow, but
yeah, we got.
You know, that's Jersey, right?
That's Jersey, absolutely. Yeah, so it's all good. Like one day. When you say 1 week was a full day? Full week?
This week. Okay, so we're recording this on February 25th. This coming week, I
your
will work
only
a
full
5-day week.
Look at you. Look at you. You got it made, man.
I do have it made.
You do.
Life is good.
That's it. Now we got a long haul until the next break.
Nah, in 2 weeks I'm going to a conference, so that's another 4-day week.
Just in general here in Jersey.
Yeah, no, it is a long way till spring break for sure. How's everything in your neck of North Jersey?
Doing good, man. You know, it's as we're talking to our guests, the season is turning a little bit. The weather's getting a little bit nicer. The snow is melting, and you know what that means.
Baseball fields are becoming greener.
Baseball fields are becoming greener and turfier, and we are ready to go as the basketball season comes to an end. The indoor soccer season's coming to an end for our boys. Baseball's right there. We got boys on 3 teams apiece, and my daughter's starting t-ball this year.
That's awesome.
Isn't it, though? Oh, my gosh.
It is awesome.
Can't wait.
Coaching girls is a whole different animal.
No, that's not going to be me. That's my wife. I got the boys.
Shadow's going to take the softball?
Yep. Jamie's going to take over the softball, the t-ball, and then we'll go from there. So
that's
I'll jump in when needed.
You want to throw her some BP, don't you?
So I have thrown her wiffle ball BP in the backyard. She might be a switch hitter.
Really?
No jokes. Yeah, she hits off the tee lefty, and then she'll pick the bat up, and then she'll go righty.
Cultivate that.
I know. Her and Daniel.
Does she
her
throw
and Daniel
left-handed?
are switched. No. Everybody.
What are you doing? What?
So
3 kids, no lefties, you fail.
Well, we tried Daniel throwing lefty.
Yeah.
He can't do it. He can't do it. Like he can, but he really can't. He's a full righty thrower. But that lefty bat for a catcher, he's gonna look great. He's gonna look great. A lot of drills.
Do those catching drills I sent you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right, let's get to the show going, man. We got our live guests in the green room.
Let's
So,
do
Chris,
it.
why
I
don't we
will bring out Kevin
introduce our guest for us.
and Jason. No, you're going to introduce the guests.
All right, I'll introduce the guest.
Coming up right now, Kevin and Jason. Go ahead, AJ.
All right, here we go. We got our guest today from the 2Principals podcast, Kevin Jost and Jason Porras. Kevin began his career in education as a special education teacher, but has worked in several roles in education over the last 15 years and is currently serving as a high school assistant principal. Jason has worked as a teacher, coach, and assistant principal, and currently serves as the principal at Rogers High School in Minnesota. His dedication to the academic and personal growth of students reflects his commitment to fostering a positive and impactful learning environment. Kevin, Jason, welcome to Podcast PD.
Thanks for having us, guys. We appreciate it.
AJ and Chris, yeah, I really appreciate it. Excited to be here with you. You guys are doing great work, and we're excited to have a conversation with you today about something that Kevin and I are near and dear to our hearts. So, yeah, we're going, and I like how you said soda, Minnesota.
Yeah, I picked up on that too. That was good.
Okay, I'm glad. Okay, if you guys think it's okay, then it's okay. I thought it was a little racist towards the great people of Minnesota.
Yeah, I think AJ's kind of poking at me ever since I said the Twins, even though the Yankees have owned the Minnesota Twins. But
Owned is an understatement.
Okay, let's not go. We don't need to. You guys don't need to brag about all the championships. We do have 2 of them, but that was back when I was a young kid. But
That's Kirby Puckett.
Yeah, Kirby Puckett.
Now, I will say, AJ, where we have missed the boat, Jason is wearing an awesome
I like that.
hat for
like
for the podcast.
Just want to say, I've listened to these guys now. So I know they've had that hat since episode 1 where they ordered it. This is 137. We've got nothing but stickers.
Well, we've also changed the artwork 4 or 5 times in this run. So
it's possible. It's possible that Jason and I got ahead of ourselves a little bit in the beginning.
You guys are killing it, man.
No, that's awesome. We obviously will talk about 2Principals, the podcast, but we've got you guys here. And the whole point of today's episode for you, the listener, is for you to walk away, run away. Don't run away yet. For you to come away from this episode with a little educator self-care guide. And these guys are talking about some great things on their podcast. I believe we were talking before we hit record, 62 episodes out, 63rd is on the way, right?
That's correct. Yep.
All right. So let's dive in.
Sure.
What are some of your self-care? Actually, you know what? Let me strike that, reverse it, Wonka style. What does self-care mean to the 2 of you?
Well, I've got a definition, Kevin. You can go too, but
yeah, for sure. Why don't you go ahead and start?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think self-care is gets thrown out there, and it's just one of those terms that people can go, oh, he's just telling me or she's just telling me to do self-care. I think it's a layered. There's a layered approach to the word self-care. So self-care can really mean, hey, you know what? Go take care of yourself. And that's kind of on that surfacey level. But then there's that second level where it's intentional. You really have to be intentional about what you're going to do mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally to take care of yourself. And then that third layer is the piece where I had to get to, where I had to go seek out support, really shine a flashlight inside me to figure out what, where's all the kind of so-called demons, and really take care of myself through a mental health therapist to get me going on the right track. And I think so when I hear the word self-care, I do think it is just thrown out there way too easily and flippant. But when I'm looking at it, I look at it as like I said, a 3-layered approach. But really what I would say is be intentional with whatever that is and whatever that looks like to you. And, Kevin and I are talking a lot about the mental health piece of it and the physical health piece of it and why it's so important. So that's what I talk about when I talk about self-care.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's definitely similar. I mean, the interesting thing about Jason and I in this process, we do things very differently. We very much are passionate about kind of the end result and helping people become better. But he and I don't follow the same kind of protocols, so to speak. There's some similarities and whatnot. But, for me, I mean, he's got a great definition. It's good. It works for him. For me, it's really tied to reflecting on who do I want to be, and then thinking about, are the things that I'm doing in my daily life in line with that, and just constantly checking in, because man, life's not stagnant, right? It's constantly changing. And so what I'm doing this year might not work in a year from now because my life circumstances might be different. So I think there's just that personal reflection piece and just self-awareness that we're constantly striving for to try to tie into that self-care piece.
I agree, and it is super important. And I don't know, has your view for each of you, and obviously AJ, was self-care a thing before the pandemic? And what education was like? I mean, again, we're going back 10 years now, right?
Yeah. I would say, it was talked about, but it wasn't like it's talked about now. And I think that is due just to the, I would say, state of education and state of just people in general. If you look at the overall health and well-being of just people in general, and I'm going to speak specifically about education, there you hear burnout, you hear stressed out, you hear overwhelmed, mentally fatigued, emotionally fatigued, physically fatigued. That's what you hear. So do I think 10 years ago, people were probably taking care of themselves? Yes. But I think it's been more of an emphasis now, and it needs to be an emphasis. And I want to go back to what I said earlier about really going inward with yourself. That's hard work. I will tell you, that is not something I'll just say, hey, you get to that third layer there where you start really peeling back. That is tough. That is a really hard thing to get to. And so one of the big things that Kevin and I are fortunate enough to be a part of is we get to work with HealthWise, behavioral health and wellness right here in Maple Grove, Minnesota, and we're connected with them. So we get to work with mental health therapists, holistic practitioners, and so we're having conversations with these folks on a regular basis, which helps us in what we're trying to do, both on our journey. Like Kevin said, he's on his, I'm on mine, but we're still trying to get that ultimate goal of just overall well-being.
Yeah, and Chris, I think it's interesting. You talked about the pandemic, and yeah, I feel like it is. There's the pre-pandemic idea of self-care, and then there's the post-pandemic. I mean, it's something did change during that time, and people, I mean, think about it. I don't know how many millions of people, quit their jobs and decided they wanted to do something else, and it just it changed for people. Like the whole idea of, hey, I only get one shot at this life mentality. I do think there was a shift. And I know for me, speaking from being in the field of education, as all of us are, man, I think that counted for 7 years, right? The stress level, what it was doing to our bodies, what it was doing to our mental health, our emotional health, that was a hard couple of years. And you can't walk out of that and say that you're going to look at education the same way after going through that. So I do think there has been a shift.
Mm-hmm. And based on what you guys are into, because you guys are the experts of the four of us here, has your view of this changed now versus what it was then? Were you just as passionate about? I mean, give us a little insight.
So to kind of give you the kind of the elevator pitch of my story, about 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago, actually it was right after I turned 40, my wife and I made a drastic change in our life physically. And and I'm first one to say, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not advocating that you do this, but we made the decision to go 100% plant-based, and we did it literally overnight, and haven't had any animal products in almost 8 years. So I started down this journey of trying to regain my health prior to the pandemic. But I would say the pandemic for me forced me to look at my mental and emotional health a little bit more. I don't think I was doing that as much prior to the pandemic. I was very much kind of, when it came to work, kind of a grinder, and almost was like okay with that. Now I realize that's not okay. That's not okay to do that. You're not going to last. It's not sustainable. So I feel like the pandemic shifted that aspect of wellness for me.
What about you, Jason?
Yeah, I would go back, and I would say like 9 years ago. And Kevin and I are very different in, he talks about his nutritional where he goes, I'm animal based, I'm plant based, I'm whole food based, I'm really clean, but that's not where I was 9 years ago. I spent 2 trips to the emergency room thinking I was having a heart attack. I've lost about 80 pounds in about 9 years. Really intentional about what I've been doing. And I kind of was on a roller coaster, but the last 3 years have probably been where I've really kind of honed in on what works for me when it comes to my nutrition, when it comes to me working out, my flexibility, my mindfulness practice, my meditation, getting outside, really kind of honed in on that. It took me a while to get there, but I've really seen a drastic change. And where I was not healthy, mentally, emotionally, physically, prior to the pandemic. And, now where I'm at now, I've made some drastic changes and really, really doing some good things. And, like I get my checkup, my blood work's good. I'm doing all that good stuff. So I feel good. And, but I will tell you that the job in education right now, and that's the piece where the stress, all that, the demands of being a teacher, an educator, a principal, I don't care what role you have in the educational system, it's a drain. It really is. And if we're not careful about really starting with ourselves and taking care of ourselves first, man, we're seeing it. I mean, the people leaving education, the people that are burnt out. I mean, Kevin and I, we've got colleagues here in the state that are struggling, that are taking leaves and things like that because of the demands of the job. So it's really important to me. It's near and dear to my heart. And I just think, when you realize that like Kevin said earlier, you only get this one opportunity, this one life. You're important. You got to take care of yourself. And I don't care what that is. Look yourself in the mirror, dig in, do the work, figure it out, because you're important.
I'm glad you said that. And to go back a little bit into what you said, you mentioned 2 really important things. You talked about mindfulness and meditation, how you've incorporated that into your life. How are you guys being more mindful and maybe incorporating meditation into your routines as educators? And the part 2 to that is, in your opinion, how can educators in general be more mindful and incorporate meditation into what they're doing? So keep sharing.
Well, this is one that, mindfulness and meditation, if you had asked me 9 years ago to talk about this, I would have laughed at you and said, what, we're going to talk about this? No way. I'm not doing that. But again, it's this journey that I've been on. And like Kevin and I, you'll keep hearing that from Kevin has his story, his journey. I've got my story, my journey, but you're on your journey. And I started to, my wife, bless her heart, she's a mental health therapist. And so she was actually the one to kind of introduce me to mindfulness and meditation. And it took me a while, but now I have a practice where every morning I spend at least 10 minutes in either a meditative guided practice, or sometimes it's just a mindfulness practice where it's as simple as, if I'm laying down doing some stretching, or if I'm sitting on the couch having some breakfast before I start my day. But I'm really intentional about that. And then as I go through my day, a lot of what I'm trying to do is be present. And I'm really trying really hard to do that as I'm sitting here talking to you guys, just feeling my body, noticing my breath, just being with my thoughts and not letting myself get too far ahead or worrying about the past, just being present with where I'm at right now. And in the meetings that I'm in, Kevin can attest to this. He'll hear me even just talking to myself sometimes down the hall. Like I'll be like, I got to get back into my body. I got to get back, to my heart. So it's just something that I continually do. It's something that I talk about. I have great conversations with my wife about it. Like Kevin and I said earlier, we've had an opportunity to meet with some pretty cool holistic wellness health practitioners. And it's that piece that helps me just stay present and grounded in the work that I'm trying to do. I'm not going to say it's easy, because as you guys know, in the role of education, you can have 15 different things coming at you at one time. But for me, it's really just trying to stay focused in on my breath and being present, because that helps. What that does for me is when I'm having a conversation with a staff member, a parent, a student, I'm really trying to be there, being a good active listener, genuine, authentic, so I can just be in the moment. And I just feel I'm a better leader for that.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to admit this is probably, out of all the tools in my toolbox, this is probably the weakest one. I don't do as good of a job with this practice as Jason does.
You do. You've grown a lot in this
I
past.
have grown.
Really
I have grown.
a lot.
I've done it. I do it more than I did 2 years ago, for sure. But I'm not as, I find myself, I do a lot of I'm a runner. So I really I feel like that's my meditation. I go out on a run, and that's when I think. But as far as what it looks like at school, along the same lines as Jason, I'm trying to make sure that I understand how I'm feeling in the moment. Okay, maybe I've got a parent coming in. What are the emotions that I'm having right now? How could that potentially impact the outcome of this meeting? What is the result that I want out of this meeting? And really just trying to be, again, what we've learned from talking to practitioners and whatnot, is that people overcomplicate the whole concept of mindfulness. I mean, it really is just simply being aware of what's happening right now. That's all it is. And if you don't muddy the water too much, I mean, we're all doing it, right? And so we got to, that's the other thing we talk about, is giving ourselves grace. And we are by no means the experts in any of this. We don't ever want to come off as preachy. We're just trying to get better. And so that's a piece of this whole concept of wellness that I certainly am still working on, for sure.
Amen, brother Kevin.
Yeah, really. So with the idea of wellness and all the things that you guys are believing in, and the things that you do preach on the podcast, as building leaders, one of the things that people continuously ask us is, how are you taking care of your staff? Right. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that you guys do, either to take care of your staff during the day and to allow them to practice their mindfulness, their meditation, their healthy ways outside of the school building?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jason.
I'll start, and you can finish this one out. But I think this has been something that I've worked on as a building leader over my 17 plus years as a principal. And so for me, it's really trying. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. But I really try to simplify. When I say simplify, look at the year, look at our goals, look at our building goals, and really we're gonna focus in on 1, 2, 3 things at the max, and we're gonna try to do a really good job of that. And I know you've got state tests and all that other stuff, but that's probably the first piece of we call it our royal blueprint. And taking a look at that and really making sure we're focused in on that and we know what we're supposed to be doing. The second big thing is, I'm going to give a lot of credit to my soup and assistant soup. I've worked with them now for several years, and they're big with the whole taking care of yourself as well too. So for me, I always tell my staff, listen, you come in, do your job, and get out. Go. You need to go check in with your family. You need to go check in with personal thing, whatever it is, you have to go do that. And so, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm going to leave, I got to leave at 2:15 today, go do it. I need you to go do that, because when you're taking care of your staff and allowing them to do those things, they're going to come back more refreshed. And I believe when you're treating them as professionals and treating them as people that, hey, you go do what you need to do, they're going to come back and they're going to feel better. So that's the second piece of that. And then the third piece I would say is we try to do some fun things. We've got some really, our staff members do a great job. Our teachers, our counselors, we'll have, morning basketball on Fridays, or, we've got staff members that will walk either before school or after school. We've had yoga sessions in the building. You know, Kevin, what am I missing? Anything there?
Whirly ball.
Oh yeah, whirly ball at the end, which is kind of a fun little team builder.
End of the year,
End of the year kind of way to say have fun, where we get in these little bumper cars and we bang the crap out of each other and try to score goals with what's it called? Like
I don't even know what you call it. I'm not sure. Scoop, type of scoop.
Yeah.
You kind of said what I was going to say. The piece that I was going to add was talking about the really giving staff permission to take care of themselves and do the things that they need to do. We don't micromanage our staff. That is the last thing that we want to do. It's not good for us. It's not good for them. And I think they genuinely believe that we care about them and that we want them to take care of themselves. And I think we have conversations. I mean, there's plenty of staff that you know, as we're doing supervision in the morning, we're talking about, hey, what's your latest workout? You know, what are you into? What's your routine? What kind of classes are you doing? I mean, I feel like it's a pretty healthy staff, and so I think just modeling and just having those conversations, you know, I think help.
And we'll bring some people in too, like, you know, talking about it at a faculty meeting or doing some PD and stuff like that, providing opportunities for staff to go take advantage of that stuff. But again, like I said, we're in the human being business where we deal with human emotions. And I think if we're in this job, it's relationship driven. You better get to know your staff, be there for your staff because you're close with them. And if you are showing care and compassion towards your staff, I think that's going to go a long way. And I care about people. At the end of the day, Kevin cares about people. We want our people to feel good and be able to come in. You know, we've had staff that have struggled too, but you got to be there for them at the same time too. So there's just, you know, it's people, it's caring about people. It's trying to take care of your staff the best that you can. And so, yeah, what I got to say about that.
What are some of the ways, again, we're talking about work-life balance. What are some of the ways that you guys, or maybe even some tips you guys have about setting boundaries to make that as easy as possible?
Hey, Kevin, you want to talk about kind of how we've switched our definition?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah, we started off talking about this component of our whole message and using the same term, work-life balance. And the whole time, it just was never sitting well with us. And we finally figured out what was not sitting well was this idea of, well, when you think of the word balance, what are you thinking about, right? It's perfect. It's never perfect. It's never going to be balanced. So we started using the term work-life integration. How can you integrate the two worlds together to where you can end up having positive results and not burning out on one side or the other? And so knowing that, you know, there might be moments where your work is going to take more of your focus for a while. And then there might be moments where your outside of work is going to take more of your focus. So that's definitely something that we have kind of worked into our message over the last year. As far as boundaries go, we absolutely think that one is probably one of the most vital ones that leaders need to figure out how to do. And it's not always easy because I think educators in general, we want to be there for people. We want to help. We want to be part of the solution. And we know that the job doesn't always end at the end of the school day. We know there's going to be things that come up. You know, we do a really good job of telling our staff that we want them leaving the building. We want them not looking at their email. We even tell them we're not looking at our email. They have our cell phones. If you need to get a hold of us and it's a situation where you need to talk to us and it's 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night, text us, call us. That's okay.
If it's that important, yeah.
If it's that important. But just, I mean, that's a real simple thing is to just tell your staff, don't check your email after 3 o'clock. We're not gonna. We don't want you to either. Like, it's not nothing. The building's not going to burn down. It's going to be here tomorrow. Everything's going to be fine. But if there is an emergency, reach out to us. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, one of the things that when we're talking about the whole educational system in general, I think what's happened too, and this was part of partly, I would say, pandemic related, is that, you know, educators we were kind of being told to be on 24/7, and that's just not realistic. We cannot do that. If we want to be sane, we want to be better, spouses, we want to be better dads, moms, brothers, sisters, whatever. You got to do your work, go in, grind, do your work, but you better be checking out of that too, to go fill yourself up. And so that's the piece there where, like Kevin was saying, is, we're again fortunate. I have a superintendent, assistant superintendent that really are the same way. Like, hey, listen, we're not gonna send, if we need to get a hold of you, we're gonna call you. And so I really appreciate that. And so we continue that with our staff too. Like, hey, if we're going to need to get a hold of you because it's that important, we'll call you or text you. We're not going to send emails, and the same thing, vice versa, for them to do the same to us.
Yeah, I appreciate that, just because I tell my staff, you're not going to get an email from me, after school hours. If I need something, if I got to tell you something, we'll send it. I'll schedule it for the morning, or I'll reply to you. If you're emailing me and you want my response, I'll find a way to get in touch. But there's no way you're going to get an email from me, just telling you, here's what you have to do tomorrow.
Right.
Like that's their time. They left the building. Like, we understand, our district administration understands, you're gone. You did your job for the day. Go home, go be with your family. It's the other group that's always contacting us after hours. It doesn't understand that we have families as well.
Yeah. Well said.
Well said.
Yeah.
Real quick, we got a comment from Ruth over on Twitter. She says, I'll pull it up here. As a special ed teacher, my plate has been overloaded to the point that doing the job is not possible. I consciously forgive myself for not being able to do everything that a case manager should. I cannot work any harder, faster, or longer than I am. I do not take work home and work evenings. I do not work weekends unless it's a project that interests me. I'm hanging on, hoping for the joy I used to feel.
Yeah, that's one that I think in education, that I think dead on to what a lot of educators, teachers feel right now. And I think we have to start setting those boundaries again, like we're just talking about here. All of us are talking about setting those boundaries first, and then we got to start taking a look at the plate, right? What is on this plate right now? Because we just had this conversation. Kevin and I just had this conversation last week about just managing your time and all that stuff. But really, when you're looking at it, can you realistically get everything you're supposed to get done during that time at work? No, it's not. But how can we do that? And I think there's some system level changes, and we've had some conversations with some folks about, we're going to have to talk, at the state level, at the federal level, or district level as well too. What are some changes that need to take place? Because we can't expect folks to be able to do all this stuff, and it just seems like it got added on when, I would say too, a little bit more after the pandemic.
I don't want to come across as negative, but this might. I don't think widespread change from the highest levels of education is even possible.
No.
And I say that because you take our current, Commissioner of Education, Secretary of Education for this country. Came from, if I'm not mistaken, he was in Connecticut.
Right.
Right. I'm sure in his education career, he was in a classroom, was an administrator, and obviously slowly climbed the ranks to the highest levels of education in this country. And at every step of the way, wanted to make change. Where's the change?
Yeah. I think you're right, Chris. I mean, we talk about it all the time. It feels there's so many things from a systems standpoint and just from a cultural standpoint, just what's allowed, what's tolerable, what do we expect that needs to change, but it's so big. It's hard to even know where to start.
It's almost like it's got to be up to the individual educator, administrator to do it themselves for themselves.
Yeah.
And maybe you can look out for a couple of people, right? Or, you guys as building administrators, you can do only so much for your staffs and your districts.
I agree. And like that listener, like her comment, sometimes I think we are our own worst enemy and we get in our own way, So I think she's doing it right in terms of she's not bringing work home. She's doing what she can while she's there. I mean, she's she's working. I mean, let's just be honest, her contracted hours, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think where we get in our own way is as educators, we want to please, we don't want to let anybody down. And, historically over the decades, what do teachers do? They work on weekends, they work nights, they work 60, 70 hours a week. Well, people aren't seeing that. They're seeing, oh, you guys get paid to not work in the summer. They don't even understand that part. But I mean, it's.
I was just going to say, yeah, they
right,
think we're getting paid for all this off time.
Right, exactly. We have to, as educators, we have to set the boundaries, and we have to do it, I think, collectively enough to where the culture of education starts to shift. And I'm not saying that's easy by any stretch, but I think that's what has to happen.
The piece there too with that comment, the piece that I think I have a hard time with is what she said. She wants to find her joy again.
Mm-hmm.
And when educators are starting to lose their joy of why they do what they do, you always hear about, well, figure out what your why is and go back to your why. But I've just had conversations with some incredible teachers, incredible administrators that are fantastic, and they're leaving the profession right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the piece. That's the piece that A, scares me, but B, then really what are we going to do about that? Because we're in a crisis. We don't have the same number of kids going into being an educator, being a teacher, going in to be a principal, going in to be a superintendent. That pipeline is shrinking. I mean, you guys probably know this as well too, but the percentage of programs that are out there to be a teacher, that percent was at, I want to say, like 20 some percent. Now it's down to like 6% or something like that. There's not as many programs out there for even to go into education. So it's a sad state. And that's the piece that I think that hurts when somebody says they don't have that joy for what they do.
Man, and it's so tough talking about like just teacher retention. Like when I was 12 years old, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and there was nothing that was going to stop me unless the Yankees called. But I knew that was my profession. And I think you ask people today, they stay away from it, whether it's the amount of work they have to do, the abuse they're getting, the lack of salary. I also think our kids see too many things with social media and how easy it is to make a buck. They don't even want to focus on a career. They want to focus on what they could do right away to make money. And like teaching is not something they enjoy because we have nothing for them. I continuously tell my staff, we can't offer our kids anything anymore. The thing in their pocket, this device is what's going to offer them everything they need, because nobody cares about the content and they're not going to memorize things because now ChatGPT can do it for them. So we're really falling behind. So everything coming full circle. So we need to make the change. And whether it's one school at a time or one district at a time, it has to happen in order for our students to benefit, for our teachers to benefit, and for our future generations to benefit as well.
Yeah, something radical needs to happen.
Yeah.
You know what?
It really does.
Something radical did happen. It was a pandemic. And now let's think about how many schools and districts couldn't go back to the way things were.
And now we are. But so many districts are falling back. Right. Yeah. And now we're stuck again.
Yep.
Could have made that change when we had the opportunity.
Yep. Everybody was talking about it. Oh, this is good. We could go to a 4-day week, or we could, have, more blended, whatever it is. And now we're back to, like you said, AJ, the same thing.
Yep. My biggest thing was think of all the kids who thrived learning virtually because they didn't have to deal with these social pressures of going to school. And now all those kids are back in school and have been for the last couple of years. And they're probably miserable.
Yeah, they are.
But they're expected to do the standardized tests and
That's why attendance numbers are so low everywhere you look.
Mm-hmm.
I just read something. I think I don't even know where it was came out of, but it said like you don't expect anything to be changing until at least 2030 when it comes to absenteeism and all that stuff. And so that's the hard piece is, like you said, getting students to school. How do you engage them? How do you, then you have this whole, people want to have this conversation about, should we ban cell phones again? Should we not ban cell phones? All that. I mean, we could go on and on for hours and on hours, but really at the end of the day, we need to make school a safe place for kids that want to be, there. And how can we get them involved? I always say, get them involved in something. I don't care if it's athletics, arts, theater, whatever it may be, get them involved. And once you're involved, then I think there's that connection. And when you're connected, you build the relationships, and then, maybe it's the, going to school and going to classes make it that much better.
All right, we're getting a little ahead. We're going to ask, and we're going to go into a little more detail about those things. But first, AJ.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our executive
Let's do it.
producers. So, listener, do you find value in our conversations here on Podcast PD? Do you want to support our efforts in creating quality content for you?
Well, guess what? You can. You can give back to Podcast PD on a monthly or a yearly basis.
You can give $10 a month or $100 per year, and you can help us continue bringing you insightful and engaging conversations.
And if you do this as a thank you, all executive producers will receive an exclusive Podcast PD executive producer sticker. Maybe
But
a hat.
that's not all. That's not all. We I guess we got to do hats now too.
You got to do hats now, yeah.
Stephanie will make you a hat. But that's not all. Yearly supporters will also receive a Podcast PD mug and a Podcast PD t-shirt, and coming soon, Podcast PD the hat.
If this interests you, visit podcastpd.com/executive producer for more information on how you can become an executive producer and give back to the show.
We want you to consider joining our current executive producers, and we want to give a special thank you to Holly Landez, Sandy Hartman, and of course, Stephanie Scrocky.
So head over to podcastpd.com/executive producer and become an executive producer today.
And Stephanie mentioned in the chat that she attends yoga classes and enjoys making cups of tea during lunch. That helps her relax.
There you go.
Nice.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
And she needs to relax. She works with some of our youngest learners. All right. So we started to get into this idea of educators having some supports in place. How are you guys as administrators helping and providing support for your teachers?
It's a great question. Kevin, you want to go? I mean,
are we talking in the area of health and wellness, or are we just talking in general?
Support in general.
Let's go in general.
Oh man.
General wrap.
I mean, obviously we we have 3 administrators in our building, 3 assistant principals. And so we're all tasked with, kind of different areas and different content areas and different responsibilities. So we kind of have our own little pockets of people that we support, whether that be through obviously our observation model, whether that be through working with our collaborative teams, providing guidance and whatnot in those. I think probably in my role as an assistant principal, I would say the biggest thing that I do that supports our staff is really supporting them when they're having challenges with families or students, and really just kind of backing them up and making sure that they have what they need and working through difficult situations. I can think of, it seems like every week there's something going on, but I really try to make sure that my teachers know that I am there for those things, because those things are hard. Those are the things that make people question what they're doing and whether they should be in a different career. And so for me, that's probably the most important thing that I want teachers to know about me, is that I'm supporting them when they're going through a difficult time related to that.
Yeah, that's, for me, and as I have a fantastic admin team, Kevin being one of the 3, and then we also have an activities director and have a great counseling staff. I mean, the teachers, the kitchen, the custodians. I've been very fortunate in 9 years at Rogers High School just to have and work with great people. And my belief is that when you can take care of your staff, and what I mean by that is, make sure they have what they need. Do they have the resources? Do they, if I have a staff member, hey, Jason, I need you, this is something I want to do. I'm always trying to figure out a way to make that happen, because if that's going to be better for them and better for kids, and it's going to be better for our building. So that's some of the ways that I will try to support, is always trying to find ways to do that. And the second piece is, how can I take a look at what we're doing? And I always try to look at the word simplify and then systems and structures. Can we put systems and structures in place that are going to make it maybe easier or more simpler for our staff to do things, or whatever that looks like, either through attendance or through behavior or through building goals, observations, whatever it may be, trying to make it be so it's not so overwhelming and we've got things all over the board. It's just almost like in a little package. And it's not that easy, but really trying to, what do staff need? If they need something, I want to be there for them and get them what they need so they can be effective at what they do. And then also listening. I think so much as a principal, and this is what I've learned over my time, and I still got a lot to learn. I am not perfect by any means, but listening to your staff, listening to your folks about what's going on. If I'm hearing something that I'm like, whoa, we're going off on a that I got to change, I'm going to take a look at that and make changes. Because I'm going to listen to the people that are in the trenches doing it. So I think that's good too, because I don't want to come across like, hey, I'm the building principal, this is the way we're doing it, and if you don't listen to me, you're not going to be here. I think it's a collaborative effort. And in that, at the end of the day, I've said this since I've got there, when things go well, it's because of everything that's going on with the staff in the building. When things aren't going well, that's on me, and I have to own that, and I have to figure out a way to make it better. So I think, just like I said, being there, relationship business, people care about people, give them what they need, support them. And like Kevin said, help them just set the boundaries and get them out so they can enjoy other things other than what they're doing during the day.
Is there anything that you guys have been able to take off of the plate of your teachers since the pandemic, or even prior to that, something that you didn't enjoy as a teacher, and now that you were in a position to make it happen, you've relieved that from your staff?
That is a good question.
Or is there something you'd like to do?
Oh, geez. There's so much I wish they didn't have to do.
Right.
I mean, you name it. I mean, I wish they could collaborate, and I wish they could teach. I wish that was it. But we all know that that's not the reality right now. I'm trying to think, like, when I was in the classroom, so I'm a former EBD teacher. So obviously the thing that I would have loved is less paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Has that happened? Probably not. That's probably still happening. Man, I don't know. I'm struggling with that one a little bit. Jason, what do you think? Have we gotten rid of anything?
I'd say a couple things is, I would say trying to limit the number of like supervisions that our staff had, either before school or after school is one big one that comes to mind. The other big one too is I just lost my train of thought. Because I was thinking about that, changing that schedule. But when it comes to the supervision schedule, making sure that they don't have as many on their plate. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is not having. And if there's people out there that love committee work and do all these committees, God bless you. I'm not one of those type of people. I when we need something to do, we're going to form it. We're going to make it. We're going to get it going. We're going to do it. But I don't like to have 8-9 different committees, and everybody's got to sign up for a committee, and everybody's got to be on that, because just to do it, it's got to be intentional, and it's got to be purposeful, and it's got to be aligned to our building goals and expectations of what we're trying to do. So I think that those are the two that I would say for me.
I will say this, I just thought of this, and I don't know if this might sound like more work, but I'm just kind of thinking, Jason, about so I'm responsible for putting the schedule together, the master schedule, and which, man, that's a great job.
God bless you.
Yeah, it's the best. He hired me to say, by the way, you're doing this. But one of the things that we do that's a little different, I think, than our other high schools in our district is we are super, super transparent. Like super transparent. We show them everything. We involve them. We meet with each department. We have them, give us what they want to teach, like all of it. And so you would think maybe that's more work. we're giving them more work, but we're giving them a sense of agency too and some control, which I think they appreciate. And I mean, I know they appreciate it because they verbalize it. So I don't know. That's one I just thought of that I think might kind of fit into that category a little bit.
Or the other piece too is just the whole meeting piece. You're supposed to have, and I'll tell the staff at the beginning of the year, I'm not going to have a meeting. And I know a lot of administrators do this. I'm not going to have a meeting if we don't need to have a meeting, but I'm also going to, if I have to, like this past month, I had to call 2 faculty meetings. So we had 2 in the month. Well, there was probably a month that we didn't have one, but it's just, they understand that when it's needed, they better be there because it's going to be stuff that we're going to need to either do or they're going to need to get from what we're trying to do. So just trying to be respectful of people's time,
Can you just maybe just for the principals in the back who might not be listening, just bless it, make it okay, give your blessing that if you don't need to have a meeting, don't just have one because to have one.
Yeah, I think if you're listening, there's no reason. Everybody, if we're understanding what we're talking about here, people are already busy enough. And if we're talking about time and how to save time, you don't need to get up in front of your staff just to talk about things that could either be sent through an email or maybe done during a collaborative team time or professional learning time. There's other ways to get that information out. Teachers do appreciate that. The other piece I would say is anytime you can bring in some treats or things like that, and maybe just call a meeting to have everybody come up and grab a treat and then send them on their way. That's another, that's something that I've learned and I think is good to do too.
Yeah, I don't think anything kills culture or morale faster than everybody getting together for 25 minutes in the morning before the school day and nothing was really talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So
it could be an email.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're talking about support, and we're talking about support for teachers. And I know you guys on your podcast talk about support for yourselves too. So why don't you guys talk about the communities that you rely on and the professional networks that play a role in your support and help you with your mental health and just well-being overall?
That's great.
You want to go first or you want me to go first?
You go first, pal.
Okay. So, for me, it's kind of interesting because I'm actually very much an introvert. I am not an extrovert. It takes a lot of work actually for me to do these podcasts. The way I say that is because when I feel like I need to recharge, man, I'm going to go somewhere by myself. I'm not going to be around anybody. That's what makes me feel good. Now, obviously I can do all the work of an extrovert because that's what I do every day. And obviously I do the podcast, but, my network of support is actually pretty small. It's pretty confined to my wife. I got a couple of close friends. And honestly, even just this podcast over the last year, I have done more reflecting and have gotten more out of what I will call, it's been my own PD. I've had, 50 plus conversations with people I never would have met before. And it has been amazing, absolutely amazing. And so it has opened up the door for me to explore different resources. And so I would say for me, it's like I said, it's a pretty small community of support that I tap into. I'm pretty private. Obviously I'm getting a lot out of our connections that we make on social media. There's lots of great people, lots of great resources, but I mean, ultimately it's really my wife and kind of my own practice and my own goals and things that I work on. So I don't know.
Is she in the room with you now? Is that why?
She's asleep. She's asleep. I'm probably keeping her awake. She's right above me in the basement.
So I have Joe Mauer as my
your guru.
My guru. No, actually, it's kind of funny. We had Joe Schmidt, who is a local radio TV guy here, and he's really close friends with Joe Mauer and has written a couple books with Joe, and actually just a children's book. So we had Joe Schmidt on the show, and he just told some fun stories. He was kind of a fun little ride. But for me, I look at it too as at first it starts with me. I have to be intentional. I have to be reflective. I have to be centered in what I'm doing. And so what that looks like for me is, I need to make sure that at least 4 times a week, I'm getting a great strength training lift in the morning. I have to do that in the morning. I have to get up. I have to do that. I know that I need that. I also need to make sure that I have a meditative practice or mindfulness practice in the morning and or throughout the day. I also like, my wife and I like to go get home, and I like just to get my shoes on and get outside into nature, into just the outdoors. I think it was, I don't know if I heard it on Huberman or whoever, but 90% of the people spend their time indoors. And 90% of the time people spend indoors, and that to me is like, that's not good for you. So get outside. So when I talk about that as myself, and then I go a little bit further, obviously, like Kevin said, it's my family, it's my wife. And then I've got some really good connections through health wise. Some people that I can stay in contact with if I need, something from just checking in. And then it's a small group of principals that I've really formed over the last 5 or 7 years that they know they can call me at any time and I can call them at any time. It could be for whatever. I mean, you have a situation going on in your building, you want to bounce something off, or I just had a principal check in with me last Thursday about a situation that they're dealing with, and just having that connection there is important. So yeah, those are the things for me, and how I try to do that. And if I need to, I call my mental health therapist. I call her my life coach now. If I do need to check in with her, it's not as regular as it was early on, but I will go check in with her. She's fantastic. She's been just a spiritual, I call her a spiritual healer. So just grateful for her.
That's excellent, guys. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think we all need to be able to rely on somebody in our network. So thank you for sharing exactly what you guys do. For the next part, Chris, I'm going to ask you to hit the music because we're going to review some podcasts real quick. So during this segment of the show, we like to highlight a podcast that we're listening to. And I know once before on PodcastPD, I have highlighted your show, but since you guys are here, we're going to make our podcast recommendation the 2Principals podcast, and who better to tell us about that podcast than the 2Principals? So Jason, Kevin, why don't you tell our audience about the podcast and what you guys bring to the table and why they should be listening to the episode that's coming up and the previous episodes you have.
Jason, you want to go?
Hey, I'm always ready to go, pal. I think for us, when we talk about the 2Principals podcast, and I'm going to try to put this in an elevator speech here, is that Kevin and I started having conversations over a year ago about just the mental health, physical health, emotional health, how to manage stress, how to integrate your work in your life to be a more effective leader. And we started having those conversations, and then we both said, hey, let's start talking about that and having a podcast. And so we had no idea. I still don't think we have any idea what we're doing, but we started a podcast over a year ago and are having conversations, to me, that are really start with yourself. And when you can do that, I truly believe when people can go inward and start to do the hard work, I'm not saying it's easy work, but when they can start doing the hard work and taking care of themselves emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, they will be better, A, for themselves, B, for their family, and C, for the people that they're serving. So that's the conversations we're having. We're talking mental health. We're talking physical health. We're talking how to manage stress during the busy times of being an educator, being a principal. And then how do you integrate work and professional life to create those boundaries to help you become the best leader that you can be, both in your job and outside your job?
It's like you practiced that. That was pretty good.
I have no idea what I just said, Kevin.
Yeah, no, that was good. I'm going to piggyback a little bit. Like I said before, we're not perfect. We're not experts. But the one thing that Jason and I do have in common is there was a time in our lives where we were very, very unhealthy, physically, mentally, all of it. And so if somebody can take one piece of nugget out of something that we do and it sparks a change in their life to move them in the right direction, great. That's all we're trying to do, because we know what it feels like on the other side. And we're not at the finish line. There is no finish line. We're still striving to get better. And it's been a roller coaster for the last 7 years. It hasn't been this perfect trajectory. So we just want to help people, encourage people. If they're looking to make a change, if they're looking to figure out how to do things differently, maybe they can take one little piece of something that we say and it pushes them in the right direction.
That's outstanding, guys. Now, you release twice a week. Is that correct?
Once. Every Wednesday.
Just once. Every Wednesday. Okay. All right. I thought it was Sunday and Wednesday for some reason, but
we put out a blog on Sunday.
That's what it is. I apologize. That's right.
Nope,
That's
you're
right.
good.
So tell the audience where they can find your blog and they can find you guys and your podcast.
Yeah, they can check us out at 2Principals.com, the number 2, and then principals.com. And that's our website that can take you there. There you can find our blog. And again, it's a very simple blog. Kevin and I will have conversations during the week and be like, okay, what's a topic that maybe Kevin and I are talking about, and then what's just some quick little information that we can share. We don't really go too in depth with it, but there's strategies, there's challenges, there's a mindfulness minute on it, and then we share a little bit about what we do. Kevin does a great job of putting together either a YouTube video of the topic and that people can take a look at. But it's a quick little way to maybe start your week, make you think about something. Maybe you're like, yep, I already knew that, or nope, I didn't know that. It can help you out. And then our podcast, you can find us on all the major podcast platforms at 2Principals. And like you said, AJ, we put ours out on Wednesdays. It's a topic. Usually what we'll do, we'll have either a guest on, and that, we just had a Lainey Royal on, who Evolving with Gratitude. She's got her podcast. She's just a wonderful person. She's a gem. But we'll have a guest on, or Kevin and I are having a conversation, and we try to go back and forth. And then at the same time, our executive director of the Minnesota Association of Secondary School Principals, Bob Driver, he has the MASSP. We've worked with MASSP now. And so he comes on our show once a month, and we talk we really kind of go the nuts and bolts of the principalship and talk about just different things that are going on and what principals can do. So, Kevin, what did I miss?
Man, I think you kind of hit it. We're working on a store. We're actually working on putting a store put together to get more hats out there. So,
and I'm going to say it right now to you guys. We're in the very beginning of a book, but I don't even know if I should say that, Kevin, but we are trying.
You said it now.
I know we're trying.
Well, it's not there.
I know we're trying to write this book. And so I don't know, it might kill me, but I hope within the next year or two that we have a book published. So from the 2Principals.
Here's my advice. Start with the cover and then keep going.
Lots of pictures or what?
Yeah.
Make it a coloring book. No, I'm kidding.
I like it, Chris. There you go.
All right. Jason, Kevin, thank you so much for being on this episode of Podcast PD. There will be links to everything with the podcast, your socials, in our show notes out at podcastpd.com/137.
You guys are doing great work. I tell people I will. You guys are doing awesome work. If people have not listened, or I'm going to try to get you guys stuff out there, but you guys are doing amazing work, and I love what you're doing. And just remember, though, guys, the Minnesota Twins are coming, baby. The Minnesota Twins are coming.
Since you brought it up, somebody put into the chat, Joe Mauer in the Hall of Fame and Bernie Williams is not. We have some reflecting to do.
Oh.
Somebody put it. Who did that? I wonder. You can't start fights with our guests, Chris. We can't do that.
Nah, but we'll bring you guys onto the other show, Chase for 28. And
There you go.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Love
There
it.
you go.
We'll talk baseball.
I'd love it.
Everybody, give us your thoughts about the conversations we're sharing. You can email us feedback@podcastpd.com, or you can send us a voicemail. Go to podcastpd.com/feedback, and you can join us the last Sunday of the month. We're very excited to continue to do the show once a month for you, and you can join us live on Sunday, March 24th, 2024, for episode 138. We would do it the last Sunday of March, but that's Easter, and I've got chocolate eggs to find. So we'll be back close to the end of March with another great episode for you. Wave goodbye, say goodbye. Are we there?
That's it. We're done.
All right.
Thank you
Close
guys.
it out.
See you in
Appreciate
a month.
it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.